interview is for my sociology class. I'm here with my grandma, Peggy Traxel. And Peggy, if you could just start out, tell me a little bit about where you grew up and the environment that you kind of grew up in.
Okay, I grew up in Arkansas. I was born in Bentonville, Arkansas, and I lived in Arkansas until I was 17.
Hmm.
And the environment was somewhat like it is right here. It didn't get quite as cold. We got snow, but we didn't get as much as we do here as a rule. Otherwise, and the summers were not quite as warm as here in the summer, but there was definitely 4 different seasons
Hmm.
this way it is right now.
Hmm. What are some of the different changes that have occurred since then, do you think?
Almost
Hmm.
everything.
Yeah.
Every, there, everything has changed a lot. The little towns, some of them have even closed,
Hmm.
and people have to go quite a bit farther for their groceries or about anything they need because the towns are so small that they don't carry, all of them don't carry everything.
Right.
But they're not too far apart, so it's not too bad.
Good. Um, how would you compare that to living in Fort Wayne? What do you think are some of the biggest differences between where you grew up and where you live now?
There's a lot more violence here, and you just didn't hear of murders or
Hmm.
things like that close by. It just wasn't there. And there's a lot more difference in uh, races.
Hmm.
We didn't have coloreds, we didn't have Mexicans, and most of the towns, it was very close. We had to go like 50, 60 miles
Hmm.
to see those, and so it was quite different.
Do you think that affected a lot of people that you grew up with? Do you think it was different than people who may grow up in a bigger city?
Oh, definitely.
How so?
There's so much more violence here than any larger town than
Hmm.
there was there. You didn't hear very much of anything that was bad
Hmm.
because everybody knew everybody,
Right.
and it just made a lot of difference. Uh, Nobody did things really bad. You didn't hear the violence. You didn't hear the things that people, you don't steal. You don't find that much. Oh, you see, find it sometimes in kids or teenagers. Mostly it's just when they're out for a good time.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. Do you think that being in a bigger city, the industry has a different effect in the environment versus growing up in a smaller town?
yeah, up to a point, there's just a lot more going on
Hmm.
in a large town.
What are some of the biggest changes with the environment that you've seen take place?
Well, like I said, there was no color.
Right.
There was no Mexican.
Hmm.
Uh, Everybody knew their neighbors, all of them. They went back and forth. We would have parties
Hmm.
periodically just to have something to do
Hmm.
because we weren't real close to town, most of us, and it was just people getting together and having a good time.
Hmm. That's neat. That's very interesting compared to how it is now. There's a lot of differences because now you see that there's a bigger community that you've been around for a long time. Do you think raising your kids, do you see a lot of differences between raising your kids in Fort Wayne and how you were raised down in Arkansas?
Yeah, I do. They don't mix like they used to,
Hmm.
like we did. I mean, and no matter where we went, we knew, seen people we knew because everybody for miles around knew everybody else. And we just, if we, if somebody was driving around and we passed somebody's house, a lot of times there was other people there, and they would stop to visit with all of them
Hmm.
because everybody knew everybody else for miles around.
Do you think that growing up in a bigger city, raising your kids in a city has had an impact on their outlook on nature, and how maybe the industry, you see a lot of crops that are grown around here. Do you think, from a nature perspective, how do you think that's different than where you grew up at?
People don't work as hard now as they did then. I mean, they do what they have to do, but they don't do anything extra. When we was growing up, we would just go past somebody and they out in the field picking corn or strawberries, things like that. And if you weren't too busy and you had something else that had to be done, they'd stop and help you and didn't expect anything for it. They just did it to be neighborly. And that's totally different than here.
Yeah.
They just don't do that. You don't mix unless it's somebody you know. And usually that comes from, well, how do I put it? Already working with somebody or something like that.
Do you think that it'll continue to expand the way it has? Do you think things will continue kind of along the same spectrum that they're going, or do you think we'll see a change in the future?
If there's a change, it's going to be for the worse.
Really?
I mean, I really see that because it's a lot different here now than when we came here 50 years ago. And it's just a lot more, well, meanness and I really noticed that because I wasn't used to it.
Yeah, it's definitely a big difference from where you grew up in, going from a small town to a bigger city.
Totally.
Do you think it'll get worse in cities that are bigger than Fort Wayne, or do you think that the communities will have a different impact? Say, like, compare Fort Wayne to Chicago, do you think it'll get worse, or do you think along the same lines? How do you think that'll go?
I think it will get a little worse in places like Fort Wayne than it is now. I hope it's not too much more, but because we still have our share of it, but not like it was when we moved here.
Definitely. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.